This is video number 2, and in this one I'm going to try to explain how if one or both of your parents are Rh positive, they can produce an Rh negative child. It's not a miracle, it's not even a rarity, and since most of us are taught that bloodlines don't mean anything unless you're a monarch, this has actually become quite common. To understand how this is possible, it is helpful to understand dominant and recessive genes. A gene is just a single biological unit of heredity. They come together to create the type of health we'll have, our height, eye color, blood type. They make up who we are, and we inherit them from our parents. A recessive gene is one that produces an effect only when it's homozygous, meaning only when there are 2 copies, as with Rh negative. You must inherit 1 gene from each of your parents, giving you a total of 2 to be Rh negative. Anything else other than 2 negative genes, and you're Rh positive. A dominant gene, on the other hand, is one that produces an effect whether there is 1 copy of it or 2. So if the dominant gene is present, even if it's alongside a recessive gene, the dominant gene is the one that will be expressed. Okay, I have 5 pictures from the Nebraska Medical Center to illustrate each of the possible combinations and make this point clear. Please remember that we inherit half of our genetic material from our mother and half from our father, and that we can only inherit the traits our parents have to give. Okay, hopefully the first picture will appear if I can figure out how to get them in this video. If not, I'll place them at the end of the video, and I apologize, but then you'll just have to reference them. But hopefully I can make this work. Okay, first picture. If a mother's Rh factor genes are both positive and the father's Rh factor genes are both positive, the child would inherit 1 positive gene from the mother and 1 from the father. Since the child can only inherit what the parents have to give, the child would receive 2 positive genes, making it Rh positive. And the second picture, if the father's Rh factor genes are both positive and the mother's Rh factor genes are both negative, the child would then receive 1 positive gene from the father and 1 negative gene from the mother, making the child a positive carrying 1 recessive gene. And the third picture, if the father is carrying 1 negative and 1 positive gene, and the mother is also carrying 1 negative and positive gene, then what the child could inherit increases, because although both parents are Rh positive due to what we just learned about dominant and recessive genes, because they both also carry the negative gene, they could pass any number of possibilities on to their offspring. This child could get 1 positive gene from each parent and be Rh positive. It could inherit 1 negative gene, the recessive gene the parents are carrying, in which case the child would be Rh negative, or it could inherit 1 negative gene from one parent and 1 positive gene from another parent and still be positive but a negative carrier. And the fourth picture. If the father's genes are both negative and the mother is carrying 1 positive and 1 negative gene, the father only has a negative gene to contribute, so we know the child will get at least 1 Rh negative gene. The child could also get a negative gene from the mother, which would make the child Rh negative. If instead the child got her 1 positive gene, then like the mother, the child would have 1 negative and 1 positive gene, making it an Rh positive with 1 recessive negative gene. Now the fifth and final picture. If the father's genes are both Rh negative and the mother's genes are both Rh negative, the child will be Rh negative. There is no other option, as the parents have no other genetic material to give to the child. Now, we understand how and why this could happen, how these could be your parents. So, doesn't all of this mean that the stories about an Rh negative bloodline are just that? Stories? No, it doesn't. It simply means that the Rh negative bloodline has been mixed with others, which has not been without repercussion. Among them, and the only one science is ready to discuss in part, is the reaction an Rh-negative woman's body has when carrying successive positive children. But that's a topic for another time. To understand how the two can coexist, how there can be an Rh-negative bloodline and the intermingling of those lines, let's define one final word: bloodline. A bloodline is defined as a sequence of direct ancestors, a family or strain. So you see, just because a bloodline exists does not mean that it could not or cannot be mixed with others and changed. In the case of Rh-negative, there may be an argument to be made that this bloodline has been affronted both from within via encouraged and successive couplings with others, as well as externally by the actions and in some cases encouragement by society of those few infamous and severely misdirected groups who have so bastardized and co-opted the concept of preserving a bloodline that to even suggest or discuss the idea raises screams in some of elitist, egotism, racism, fascism, and I'm using these words as adjectives, not nouns. But we need to realize that this is the case, that some infamous and severely off-track organizations have co-opted the concept of preserving a bloodline, that they loosely stitched to it some questionable yet accepted history and wove their personal agenda and desire into it, completely ignoring the preservation's intended function and its intended people. It would be a mistake to allow their actions to detract us from or affect what may very well be our natural and intended course. Something to think about. Now, the big questions. If who has monkey blood and who doesn't shouldn't be our focus, what should our focus be? And where did this bloodline come from, and where's the proof? I had hoped to address these issues all in a single video, but exploring them will take a fair amount of time, so I'm moving them to subsequent videos, which may take me some time to put together in a user-friendly manner. So, until then, all the best.